Let's get stuck into it. Two incredible games last night. Arsenal drew 2-2 with Bayern Munich, and there was plenty of drama and controversy in that one. Arsenal were denied a late penalty when Bukayo Saka was brought down in the box by Manuel Neuer with just seconds left to play.
Harry Kane, of course, scored on his return to North London, but Bayern were convinced they should have had another penalty themselves.
In certain way, that we are alive and we've done what we had to do after the game became very, very difficult for us, but as well understanding that that we have to step up the level in certain aspects of the game to be much better and to have a real chance for us to win the game. You have to feel it on the pitch, and game state tells you and it gives you a lot of information. Is the game there for the taking? Raise the level of risk and commit more players forward, or do something else. The game is in a state that be careful. And I think the game after scoring and giving 3, 4, 5 straight balls away and allow certain transition, it wasn't there to win it, and it was closer to lose if we make a few mistakes. But
you must be proud for the reaction.
I am very proud, and now I sense the belief that okay, we're gonna go to Munich and we're going to have the chance to win it, and we're going to be better in certain areas, and that's how we're going to prepare it.
Right, Mark's back with us. Wild is the word I'm using to describe both last night's Champions League ties. 10 goals, they're incredible matches, incredible drama, and probably Bayern Munich and Arsenal could both come up with an argument to say they should have won last night. As well as Arsenal are playing, top of the Premier League table, it's a huge task to go to Munich and turn this one around, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was interesting to see Mikel Arteta's thoughts there, because there was a real confidence and belief about his side, and you'd have to look at the way they've performed in the Premier League, and you wouldn't back against them doing something special. We know defensively on their day they've been rock solid. They've got players in offensive areas that could cause Bayern Munich problems, and we know about Bayern Munich's record in the Bundesliga this season, so there definitely are weak points in that Thomas Tuchel setup. We spoke yesterday that if the result didn't go favourably towards Bayern Munich, because this is their last chance of silverware, that Thomas Tuchel could even be sacked before the second leg next week. So it is set up perfectly, and there is a fine piece of paper between the two sides, and that's what makes it so exciting. You probably say Arsenal would have said this was an opportunity missed. They perhaps at times when they were on top should have taken their chances, maybe a little bit naive, because they did have large chunks of the game where they were in control. They dominated the possession as well, and maybe just that lack of experience in these big games is proving to be the difference between the two sides last night. We know that Bayern Munich are littered with experience as well, and I guess when you look at Arsenal's season, a lot of it's been built on that defence, particularly since the turn of the year. They have been rock solid. They do not concede goals. But you saw perhaps Gabriel and Saliba not at their very best last night. Mix-up between Raya Gabriel led to the first goal. There was a situation as well where Sane runs 30 yards unchallenged.
Incredible run.
Incredible. We know he can do that. We've seen that in the Premier League before that sort of clumsy Saliba tackle. So there were moments in the match where you thought that little bit of experience, know-how and wiliness was perhaps lacking from that Arsenal setup. But it's now 8 games in the Champions League knockout stages, first leg, that they haven't won. And again, that psychological barrier. The other thing you could say was, hang on a second, look at the last 3 matches that Arsenal have faced Bayern Munich.
I was going to say, they didn't lose 5-1, that's the main thing.
Lose 5-1, lose 5-1, lose 5-1. They didn't do that yesterday. So it shows, I guess, a resilience, it shows a development, it shows a progression from that side. So you certainly get the feeling that they are on the right track, and at 2-2, you know, it's a draw. There's still a long way to go, and it's all to play for. And I guess if you'd said to Mikel Arteta before the game, what would you secretly want? Yeah, we'd love to win. However, we just need to be in touch. We need to be in the time. We need to go to the Allianz knowing that if we can create a little piece of history and beat them, then that would be perfect for us.
Mark, we saw earlier some of the refereeing controversy in that game. Can you talk us through those decisions?
Yeah, well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you know that the spotlight is always going to be on the VAR and the referees, particularly in these big Champions League matches, because they are huge, they are monumental, and they are history-creating games that people will talk about for years and years and years. And you got the feeling as well off the back of last night, there were perhaps 3 big moments that could have gone either way. And there was a lot of pressure on the refereeing team. The referee was only 35 years old, Glenn Nyberg, and he had to make some big calls in big moments of the game. Of course, you have to remember as well, there was a backdrop of having no away fans as well. So it was just continuous home support on his back throughout the course of the game. And for someone that didn't have a lot of experience in the Champions League, that was a lot of pressure for him. So therefore, maybe that had a big factor on the game. There was no Bayern Munich fans because of the flares that were thrown onto the pitch in the Lazio game. So yeah, it was one of the big talking points after the match. Clearly, big decisions could have gone either way. And after the game, Mikel Arteta remained fairly coy about the cost of the big refereeing decisions. However, Bayern boss Thomas Tuchel was incensed, particularly with the Gabriel handball. He was unhappy with the explanation provided by Nyberg to him, the referee, for not giving the penalty. Here's what Tuchel had to say.
It was a bit tough. I felt like a lot of little decisions against us. I felt a bit like pushed from the crowd, which was a fantastic crowd. And for me, and for all of us, he did a huge mistake in not giving a hand penalty. I know it's a crazy situation, but they put the ball down. He whistles, he gives the ball free, and the defender takes the ball in its hand. What makes us really angry is the explanation on the field. He told our players that it's a kid's mistake and he will not give a penalty like this in a quarter-final. This is a horrible explanation because that means he's judging now handballs. It's a big kid's mistake, adult's mistake, or whatever. We feel angry because it's a huge decision against us. But okay.
Arsenal fans thought they'd seen the back of Harry Kane when he went to Bayern Munich. Amazing just how football throws up these stories, isn't it? Comes back. Obviously, he was always going to score. And despite Bayern having a mare this season, he's not. He's having quite a campaign, isn't he?
Yeah, 43 goals in 43 appearances for club and country. There's no question that he personally, individually, has lived up to the price tag. And you can understand the pursuit of Bayern Munich. You know, they went back and went back again and went back again to Daniel Levy to get the deal done. Eventually they got their main man. And you can see why. He's a goal scorer. He's a natural finisher. He's a focal point of that team. And he delivers on the biggest of big stages. And once again, he was at the heartbeat of everything that Bayern Munich did last night. And like you rightly say, once again, he's a constant thorn in that Arsenal side. He continues to torment them, whether it's in North London derbies or now in the Champions League for Bayern Munich. Let's take a look at the situation with regards to his numbers, because it's now 6 goals that he has scored against Arsenal at the Emirates, which is the most of any visiting player in all competitions. 15 goals scored in all competitions against Arsenal. However, or a positive, 8 of them have been penalties, which is the most against the Premier League clubs since the start of the 2014-15 season. So you'd have to say, look, when Harry Kane's in that side, don't do any rash challenges in and around the box, because that man can step up and score from the spot. But yeah, great to see him back in North London, not for the red half, but yeah, once again, another goal in the Champions League. And as we said at the start of this section, this remains the only chance for Bayern Munich to win silverware. So it is set up perfectly for the second leg.
Yeah.
All right, well, our reporter, Paul Gilmore, is live at the Emirates Stadium for us. Paul, good to see you. Right, let's talk more Harry Kane then, shall we? At the centre of things, on his return to North London, used to scoring in the North London derby. I think it was pretty inevitable, wasn't it, that he was going to get a goal last night?
Pretty inevitable indeed, and I think Thomas Tuchel said last night that he actually was in the team hotel lift with Harry Kane yesterday, and they were talking about penalties. They said, I get the feeling that we're going to get a penalty tonight. They hadn't had one since October. Thomas Tuchel keen to make that point last night. Of course, Kane did get his penalty, and he did change up his style a little bit, and he explained the reason behind. We're used to seeing Harry Kane maybe go, if he goes low into the corners, it's hard and firm, or whether he goes into the roof of the net, whether he goes into the top corner. But this was much more placed. He waited a lot more on David Raya, and this was the reason he gave to changing up his penalty style for this one last night.
Yeah, it was a little bit different for me. It's something I've been practicing because, you know, sometimes keepers like to go really early with my penalties, so it's something I've been working on, and it just gives me another kind of addition to the belt when it comes to penalties, to have a different type of penalty. So it was nice to see it come off today. It was a little bit strange, to be honest. Of course, I didn't expect to play Arsenal so soon after leaving Tottenham, but yeah, I lived in North London for a long time, so I had a lot of friends and family on both sides. I had a lot of obviously Tottenham fans texting me as well, so yeah, it was a special occasion. Of course, it would have been great to win the game today, but all I can do now is try and win the game next week at home, and I'm sure I'll make a few Bayern Munich and Tottenham fans happy.
Paul, it perhaps wasn't all positive for Harry Kane. There was an incident, wasn't there, where an elbow went flying. It went into Gabriel. I mean, you speak to Alan Shearer, you speak to Andy Carroll. They used to do that every week. That's a striker's challenge. Do you think he was lucky to avoid any punishment, though?
It felt like the kind of general consensus here last night was that a yellow card was probably a fair punishment for that challenge. That said, we have seen referees give maybe worse than a yellow card for that, so maybe you can always argue that any kind of action with the arm, especially having looked back first of all, you always take a chance in that sense. But in the heat of the moment, sometimes I guess battles like that can happen between physical centre-backs and strikers. So yeah, I think the general consensus here last night was a yellow card was probably the fair punishment, but I know the point was made maybe by former referees, and certainly I think it was Keith Hackett said in the Telegraph this morning that he felt Harry Kane was lucky not to get a red card for that, and maybe would have been given one in the Premier League with a VAR review. But yeah, general consensus here last night was that maybe a yellow card was the fair outcome in that.
See at the game last night for us. Can you give us a bit of an insight into what it was like having no away fans, and after the match, what was the feeling amongst the Arsenal fans? Do they feel like that was a good result for them to take to the Allianz, or are they disappointed they didn't capitalise?
I think it was such a strange atmosphere. It was a strange moment when Bayern Munich scored their equaliser. Of course, former Arsenal player Serge Gnabry, and then when Harry Kane scored the penalty, we could hear the Bayern Munich bench, and the cheers from the away area of that bench area. So that was pretty strange to get used to. I think if anybody had been not paying attention to the game in front of them, they maybe would have missed the Bayern Munich goals. Such was the stunned silence. That said, the way Arsenal fought back, Mikel Arteta was brave. He was bold with his substitutes and his attacking approach. I mean, it certainly Zinchenko coming on as well gave the likes of Leroy Sané, who looked so up for the game, a bit more space down that right-hand side. So there was an element of risk there, but ultimately his subs, Trossard and Jesus, combined for the equaliser, and I think they'll feel a lot more content after the way the first half did go after they took the lead, being 2-1 behind. Bayern Munich with a bit of swagger about them again after their confidence has been knocked recently, and we saw that in the second goal actually for Bayern Munich when Manuel Neuer, he flicked the ball up, he scooped the ball up over Havertz's head, and that got them out. It beat any kind of press, and that eventually led to Leroy Sané's run, and that led to the Harry Kane penalty. So after that moment, and it was a little bit flat in the first half inside the Emirates based on what they were saying, based on Bayern Munich being that the Bayern Munich are showing glimpses and signs of the Bayern Munich of old with that kind of swagger and confidence that they have and have had over the years. It did go a bit flat, but in the second half when Arsenal got the equaliser, the place lifted again, and Mikel Arteta did say after the game that he felt the key moment was at 1-0 up, Ben White having that chance. He was getting into some really advanced positions on the right-hand side, and that caused a bit of chaos for the opening Arsenal goal as well. But moments after that, he had the chance. Neuer saved it. That could have been 2-0 Arsenal. It could have been a completely different atmosphere inside the stadium. So I think, given the way it did pan out and the fact Bayern Munich were 2-1 up, Arsenal will actually be quite happy with the result. It takes it back to the Allianz Arena. Bayern Munich know Thomas. You just have to listen to Thomas Müller talk about what it's like for opposition teams in that stadium, and that is going to be a challenge for Arsenal. But crucially, the tie very much still in the balance.
Paul, good man. Thank you very much.